here. There it goes. Ha. We're back in the Go Live Vegas studios. This is Full Tilt Vegas, down the heart of Las Vegas. Okay, Brett's going to be coming on. Laugh track. I'm a clap track. And he's sitting on the couch right now, the famous couch. Hey, put that rum down. So anyway, thank you very much. We try to have some more. We're trying to have some more fun on the show because we don't want it too serious, and because I do see some other shows. Thank you very much. And I do see them clowning around, or people call in, take calls and stuff. It's funny the stuff that they kind of get off the show and then they get back on. Same thing with BitBoy and Jed, the crypto guys. They do the same thing. So anyway, yeah, we're Brett's gonna be.
Thank God I finally get some time away from the evil monkey in my closet.
This ain't that kind of show. So anyway, I'm gonna talk today about surveillance, the eye in the sky. That was around the late '60s when that came up, when they first put that. Because I think that movie, were they getting me? Coming after me? I didn't take that much from him. What was that? What's that guy's name? He took $8 million on mainly roulette. Is his name Richard? I can't remember the guy. There was two guys. She says, yes, I can hear you. Yeah, I know. I can hear myself too. It's loud. There's a coming for comic relief. Oh, I can see better here. So anyway, there was another guy who was in charge of slot machines and stuff. I never remember that dude's name. The other guy, he stole a lot of money on roulette, but there was no eye in the sky back then. He stole a little more than $8 million during called the Savannah. I think I showed it on one of the shows here. It's called the Savannah, and what they do is they heal the chips. They got like, say you do. Well, he was doing a chocolate, which was $5,000, and then they had two red, which were fives. And he hid the chocolate by healing it. I showed some people on parties in California, and they're all messing around with me. They're laughing. I said, hey, let's play the game. I should have never showed you guys that. So anyway, he was doing it for $5,000, and the guy was paying him, and he said, hey, what are you doing? So he lifted up the two $5 chips, and there was a chocolate, which was a $5,000 chip. Well, he did this mainly on roulette. And the other one, he ended up with a partner. And he ended up, they start doing it on blackjack. But the one on roulette was easier because a lot of times the dealer will look away because he has to look at the ball. And that's when they would either take it or leave it. Because if he won, he'd leave it. If he lose, he'd pick it up. So, and if they told him to put it back, he was good enough to flip the chips. Where chips, where he'd put the 2-5 down and keep the chocolate in his hand. I showed on parties how to do that. And I said, hey, you guys don't go out there and start doing this. Richard Marcus, that was his name. You can look him up and Google him, Richard Marcus, and watch the biography. I have all those on actual tape, a lot of Vegas cheats and stuff. I got tons of that stuff. So anyway, so that's what he did. The other guy was, I can't remember that dude's name. He got caught fixing the slot machines and he was actually the guy who was doing all the algorithms and all that. So they would find out if the machine had a gaff or there was just something wrong with it. Well, he was the one that was keying the coins, 2 coins, 3 coins, 1 coin, and it would pay a jackpot. And like I said in my other show, if anybody out there has a favorite slot machine and you say, well, I'm going back to the slot machine, and you go back, make sure it's that machine, the same machine, 3-reel, 4-reel, 5-reels. And what you do is you can do it now. I mean, they're not going to do nothing to you. Just take a picture with your phone. All slot machines have a serial number right there. You can't miss it. Pretty close where you put the money in. Take a picture of that slot machine or that serial number, and if you could remember the name of the what kind of slot machine is Wizard of Oz or whatever, 5 Bells or whatever. and because they do move those machines around. I did tell that story. They move those machines around, so you got to look for that same machine and look for the serial number and see, make sure it's that machine, because sometimes there's 7, 8, 10 same machines, but the serial number is different. Well, he was going around, tell the guy, his partner, and he went over there and they rigged the machine, and he had it where you owe 2 coins, 3 coins, 1 coin, and to pay the jackpot. But they were only making like 5. You know, they were making money. They just got greedy, 10,000 a day. But he would go to different casinos, and he was the guy that made sure that they didn't have a gaff. Well, he ended up getting caught because he got greedy. I did tell that story. I wish I could remember that guy's name. I'll get it next time, maybe if I can remember. But he rigged the somewhat of the out. He figured out a system, a math. How you say? It's not the. Anyway, he figured it out because he was a guy that made sure the software was correct, and so he would figure out sequence. That's what it was, sequence. He figured out the sequence, and he got it to where it was close. But he said eventually, if you keep playing, it's going to hit. Well, $100,000. Yeah, they got caught. The dummies were in the same room. His partner and him. Well, he was in the same. They registered different times, but he used his name. So that's how he got caught. But anyway, so the surveillance in the sky was in the late 60s. And before, like I said, before the Eye in the Sky, Richard Marcus took that money. And I remember the movie, I think it's Ocean's 11, the original. If you look up at the Copa Room, they have a replica in the Venetian. Sheldon Adelson, he said he remembered when he was a kid, so he actually redid the room. It's the Copa. And he, if you look there, there's no eye in the sky. If you look at the ceiling, there's no eye in the sky. And the same thing, Dino's Den, which is at the Riviera, was there way back then. There was no eye in the sky back then. There was Mandarin Woods. Or I can't never say that word. But if you look up, there's no eye at all. They used to use the tracks. They'd run across the back and forth, and you look up, they were all mirrors. I remember going in the Riviera and seeing those mirrors because I already knew the story. So I went in there. This was years ago. So it's funny because they run up and down those things with their binoculars, like if they couldn't see good enough, you know what they were looking at. But anyway, they use those they still use those in San Bernardino at Stater Brothers. Anybody goes to Stater Brothers, the stores? There's still one guy up there, or 2 guys up there. They're still using those because they can move around real quick and catch you. Some of the cheaper, because they did redo a lot of the stores. But the reason why I know, because I got invited to do that for one day, go to undercover guys. I knew the undercover guys. They say, Richard, come on, you want to go with us? I said, yeah. So I was up there watching everybody, and I actually caught some lady, but I had to tell the guy, hey, you go and arrest her because I can't do it. But I saw her stealing, how she was taking the stuff and pretending, take a little bit, put the cover back on, throw it in her purse. Says, no, it's used. Look. This is, no, I saw you. So, but anyway, yeah, the surveillance. The other thing I want to tell you about that, because I did tell this to a couple of times. It's happened to me at Crap Table. One was at the Plaza 2 years ago. I think it was about 2 years ago. And one of the crap guys was getting mad the way the guy was throwing the dice, and he says, "You keep doing that, I'm gonna take the dice from you," which they can do. They can do that because it's a private-owned business. So the guy wasn't doing nothing wrong. He was just a young kid. He was pumping his chest up because the box man wasn't there, so he was in charge. He was on stick, and so the guy did a couple more times. And right when the guy threw the dice already, once they go past half. Or it's up to discrepancy of the box man. But if they go halfway, they count. If they're in the air, they're supposed to count. But sometimes, what are you going to do? The box man can say no. So he threw the dice already, and they were already flung way past him. And he turned around and says, no throw. And it came up 7. And everybody looked at me, no. And then it came up 7. He goes 7 out. And I go, okay, well, you're not going to take the money, right? And I'm thinking to myself. So he ends up, they tell the guys, take all the money, and everybody starts screaming and hollering. So I had to call the floor, and they came over, And they asked what happened. He told his story. Then we all told our story, and I already knew. I had a pretty good idea. They didn't have it on tape. Had a really good idea. They didn't have it taped because sometimes those smaller casinos, they don't have the money or they don't care to put in the surveillance they should put in, but they waited for 10 minutes went by, and I told all those guys on the table, they don't have it on tape. How do you know? They're taking too long. They're looking for it, or they're stalling. They don't have it. So they're going to come up and ask us, how much did you have? And be honest. How much did you have? What bets did you have, and how much was on there? I'm going to tell him I had $115, I think, total. So he took down a piece of paper, my name, and he says, how much you have? 115, 115. The next guy, there's about 6 of us. And he says, and he told the guy, pay him. And I said, I knew it. They didn't have it on tape. They said that, what did he say? Something like, we can't find it or something. He says they don't have it because, I'm going to tell you why. A lot of these surveillance, eye in the sky, a lot of them are dummies. But don't go out there and say, oh, Richard said they're dummies. Don't do that because some of the other casinos that do have the money, they are spending the money, but they're putting in more cameras. It's not that they're all filled, because if you look up, you'll see maybe they're some of them are 2 feet apart. Now, why would they have a camera, 8 of them across 2 feet apart? They don't need that many. There's probably, more than likely, there's 1 in the center, and then there's 2 at the ends, probably. Now, either they're still cameras, or they go 180, or they are 360, whatever. But I'm just telling you, they're not, because I'm not supposed to know this, but as usual, Richard figures stuff and finds out. I met...
Super genius!
Thank you very much. I end up talking to a retired surveillance lady, and you should have seen me. I was, yeah, what about this? And what about that? And after she was yapping and talking, I go, you're not supposed to be telling me this. You know that, right? She goes, I don't give a shit. I don't work there no more anyway, and I couldn't stand that casino. So I got some information I shouldn't have. And also the surveillance are not supposed to talk to, I told that story. We had one guy at the bus station, and he got in the car because the bus was late. We all jumped in it. He never talked to nobody. I was wondering, how come this guy never talks to nobody? And then sometimes we didn't see him. Well, he was surveillance, and he's not supposed to be talking to dealers. So I found out that, what's that, the bus leaving? We're late. So what happened was, she told me, she said that some of those tapes now, they were, originally they were tapes, and then, what was it, VCRs? And now they're digital, and they do keep them probably 6 to a year. But some casinos, the smaller casinos, they might keep 2 weeks. Because if nothing goes on, if no FBI or the DA in that city comes and says, hey, we need to see your surveillance tapes going back 3-4 weeks. That's why they tell them to keep them at least 6 months. Just in case something's going on, they're robbing something, and they figure out that these guys been doing this 2 months ago, or then they did it over there 2 months after that, or before that. And then if they erase the tapes, they won't have the whatever video. But so what happens is they go back. Well, look at that's the same guys that robbed this casino, and then they find out how long they've been doing it. That's why they want them to keep them 6 months to a year, but some don't keep it that long. And back to the domes in the sky, that dummy dome. He says a lot of them don't have it. That happened to me at another casino in California. It was an Indian casino, and I did the same thing to us. They were taking a long time, and I said, you know what? They don't have it. They're going to come, and they're going to probably ask us how much money and all that, because they had a shitload of those domes. And I know, I says, there's no way they got that many cameras. They were crisscross, and I look over there was a ton there, and there was a bunch over there. And I go, they had the real big domes. You'll see if you see the one with the real big dome, that's a 360 camera. That one's spinning. But sometimes if you see the little tiny ones, they're either empty or they got a still camera. And don't tell nobody I said this. But I'm just telling you about surveillance. But don't, just because you think, just because what I'm telling you, don't don't start thinking, well, there's nothing there. And then now they got some casinos have these terminal cameras. What they are, let me see if I said that right. Thermal camera terminal. Thermal camera. They can tell when you come in, they can tell what your temperature is. So sometimes they're not even taking temperature no more. They can find if you got 104, 100.4, you're all right. But if you go 100.5, they tell you, hey, you either going to come in here, we got to stick you in a room, and we're going to have to check you a little bit further, or you cool down for 15 minutes, and then they check you again, and then they tell you, well, you either got COVID or you got a flu or a fever, and they don't want you in the casino. So those are those cameras. But yeah, back to the eye in the sky. When people cheat on slot machines, they're called a shadow. So sometimes they standing here because a lot of them when they cheat and they look up. Well, there's a camera there, and there might be one way over there. They find the machines at the cameras that the shadow stands next to, and when he stands there, the guy could be doing what he's doing, like the wand, what do they call them, the monkey. The other one was what was it called? The wand. There was a monkey, the monkey paw, and there was some other ones that they use to cheat, and that's what that guy's called a shadow. When you're cheating at a blackjack table or a crap table, that's called an agent. You're working with an agent. Okay, I'm going to get off here. Brett's going to be coming on, and he's going to do his shtick. So we'll be back here on Full Tilt Vegas. Hi, my name is Richard Delatorre. I'm the author of It's in the Book, Winning Ways. It's on Blackjack, Craps, and Roulette, and you can get it on Amazon, Google Play. You can get it on Barnes & Noble, and it teaches you the ratios and percentages of the casino, because the casino is really in charge. I put the percentages and ratios in your favor. You spend a little bit more money, but you have a better chance of winning. Doesn't mean you're going to win. No book should ever say you guarantee you're going to win. But what I did do is I cut down the ratios and percentages so you fully understand them on these 3 games. So you can go ahead and get that book. I was one of the top selling books on Amazon 2018. I was number 7. I was with Doyle Brunson, Negreanu, The Magician, John Patrick. So I was pretty good for my first book. So you can go ahead and get that book and pretty much read it to where you pretty much got it memorized. And you should be walking to casinos pretty much as an expert on these 3 games. The platform here is Go Live Vegas Studios, and my show is called Full Tilt Vegas, 6 p.m. Saturday night. I do have guests. Brett Lawson is a sports analyst. He comes on after me. Sometimes we double up. He does it on all the sports, and you can go ahead and see that. And I'll see you next Saturday or every Saturday at 6 p.m. on Full Tilt Vegas. Thank you very much.
What's going on, everybody? Brett Lawson here, co-host of Full Tilt Vegas and local sports analyst. Just a quick heads up, moving forward, I will be a regular part of the show where my segment, the back end of the show, will focus on everything in the world of sports gambling. You will still have Richard's insights and expertise and everything from his book, Winning Ways, in the first part of the show where he will dabble with table games and overall floor-related gambling, where my part of the show will focus on analyzing matchups, odds, totals, money lines, spreads, props, overall gambling, psychology, and philosophy, and just the things you need to know if you want to become a sports bettor, or if you already are a sports bettor and want to sharpen your skills in that racket. So stick around. Moving forward, you will have both ends of the spectrum in the world of gambling with Richard and myself moving forward on Full Tilt Vegas. All right, keeping it rolling here, and happy to be in the action right here on Full Tilt on Go Live Vegas. A lot of fun in that first segment, Richard. Happy to see that we've added some production elements regarding sitcom laugh tracks and audio clips of some of the greatest adult animation series of all time. So shout out to our technical wizard, Mr. Aaron Ellikis. But just before we touch on some of our the analysis and some of the betting picks we like to get into there, and hopefully plenty of more of that coming up in the next segment and as we carry on through the rest of the hour. But before we do get to any of that, a much more somber note. You probably heard it at this point. The news broke early this morning, the passing of former Washington and former Pittsburgh quarterback Dwayne Haskins, taken in the first round of the 2019 draft by Washington of the 15th pick overall, was recently in Pittsburgh in a backup role and projected to be in the workings of that organization moving forward, was in Florida doing workouts with his running backs and receivers, trying to prepare for the upcoming season. When this news broke earlier today, the cause of death was revealed immediately as he was announced on the dead on the spot as he was struck by a dump truck while walking on a South Florida highway. He was 24 years old. I'll just read this little excerpt here from the press release. Florida Highway Patrol spokesperson Lieutenant Indiana Miranda said Haskins was pronounced dead at the scene. He was attempting to cross the westbound lanes of Interstate 595 when there was oncoming traffic, she said in an emailed statement. She didn't say why Haskins was on the highway at the time near Fort Lauderdale. The accident caused the highway to be shut down for several hours, and Miranda said it's an open traffic homicide investigation. Again, he was currently training in South Florida with other Steelers quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. Head coach Mike Tomlin released this statement earlier this morning in the immediate wake of this news being broken. I am devastated at a loss for words with the unfortunate passing of Dwayne Haskins. He quickly became part of our Steelers family upon his arrival in Pittsburgh and was one of our hardest workers both on the field and in our community. Dwayne was a great teammate, but even more so, a tremendous friend to so many. I am truly heartbroken. Our thoughts and prayers are with his wife, Calabria, and his entire family during this difficult time. So Dwayne Haskins, unfortunately, gone as a result of a vehicular homicide, struck in South Florida, gone at the age of 24. Again, drafted in the first round of 2019. Had a couple of bumpy seasons early on in his career, but many people believe there was a lot still to come, given the talent, the potential, and a lot of people thought here in Pittsburgh he was going to get back on track, and here he was working for that next step in his career before his life was tragically cut short and taken away from him. So obviously a very somber note, kind of hard to jump into sports handicapping and betting analysis surrounding anything with the fights and the Masters this weekend, and of course NBA and NFL futures. We will try to do so anyway, but we could not get going first without mentioning that very, very important and very, very saddening news that again broke earlier this morning. But if we are going to dive into something this weekend here on Full Tilt, again, very happy to be here in place of Richard. Guess we can start nowhere else than the Masters. Augusta off and running in full swing. Obviously, several big names, if you've been following the coverage, have made the cut. Several big names did not make the cut. In my personal opinion, that is actually very, very good for the game of golf when you could have that type of parity and when you are in a situation where some of the key figures, some of the key names and top talents in the world, when you're in a position where they can miss the cut and you are still absolutely studded with stars, surrounded by talent for the players that did make the cut and are now playing in the weekend, as we are now 3 rounds through 4 with Masters Sunday tomorrow. When you could still have that crop, that plethora of talent out there, that says a lot about where the game is currently and how much talent is currently in the game. Just a quick update on the leaderboard before we tackle the betting analysis. I'll give you the pairings that are officially confirmed for tomorrow. A lot of guys did a lot of crucial things today here in round 3 on the other side of the cut. A lot of guys jockeying for position. We saw some guys slide. We saw some guys jump up. But so far, it is all Scotty Scheffler. He has 9 under on the tournament. Through round 1, went 1 under. The performance of the day really goes to Cam Smith, who is right behind him at 6 under on the tournament. He was 4 under on the day. Had an incredible round 3 after a very disappointing round 2 to follow up a strong start. So Scheffler and Cam Smith both kind of got out of the gate swinging pretty strong, I guess you could say, playing pretty well. Cam Smith more so day 1, Scotty Scheffler more so day 2, and here we are in day 3. Through day 3, both played very well today and are positioning themselves for what should be a very interesting race for that green jacket come tomorrow. But also in the mix, Sunjun Im, who is also very strong in the opening round, kind of fell off a little bit in day 2 and the beginning of even today's round, but really rallied to position himself. He's 3rd on the leaderboard, was 1 under on the day, 4 under on the tournament, and Shane Lowry, who was 1 over on the day, kind of came back down to earth a little bit after having a really strong Thursday and Friday, but he sits again tied for 4th with former Masters champion Charles Schwartzel. They are both 2 under after both going 1 over on the day. Again, kind of gave themselves a little bit of insurance room, I guess you could say, a little wiggle room after those strong opening rounds on Thursday and Friday before the cut. And it's interesting because, like I said, we have a crop of strong young talent in the mix here, but we also have some former champions. Charles Schwartzel hasn't really been, I guess you could say, a world-class competitor in terms of the rankings in quite some time. But here he is, a 2011 Masters champion, tied for 4th in the mix. Danny Willett, who won at the expense of Jordan Spieth's epic choke job, I guess you could say, a few years, 2016 at Augusta, when Spieth tried to go back-to-back. Danny Willett comes in and has one of the huge upsets in the history of the tournament. He's kind of since then been hot and cold, not really solidified himself within the rankings, but here he is in 2022 back at Augusta, and he's competing. He's at currently ranked 8 on the leaderboard. Had a little bit of a rougher day again after a strong Thursday and Friday. Kind of came back down to earth in round 3, but again, he's 1 over, and he is dead even heading into the final day of the tournament. You also saw Dustin Johnson solidify himself at the top 10 positioning. A lot of people wondered after a strong day 1 showing and a little bit of a shakier round 2 showing, people were curious to see how he would stabilize, and he very much did that, as did Justin Thomas, who had a very good day, and he was able to get into the green, now 1 under after an even round on the day. So a lot of big names in there. Tommy Fleetwood and Colin Morikawa are in the mix after a strong showing. Round 3 really just goes to show how much on the other side of the cut, just how much jockeying is done, both in terms of setting up tomorrow and kind of not really cleaning the slate and pressing reset, but kind of just quickly, I guess you could say, going back to the drawing board, because now you know who's gone. You know who for sure is going to be there no matter where they place. That's why Tiger Woods yesterday having such a strong showing in round 2 after a strong round 1. However, in round 3 today, his putting was really, let's just say it wasn't generous to him. He had multiple 3-putts. He had a 4-putt, several double bogeys, and today was a tough day for Tiger, and it's likely he will not be in the mix come tomorrow. But again, on the other side of the cut, technically anything is possible, and that's why the Saturday after, when that coverage switches from ESPN to CBS, it again is almost kind of like pressing the reset button, and it's so interesting because even though you can't win the tournament in the first 2 days, you can certainly lose the tournament in the first 2 days. And that's really why the cut exists, to separate that clear line in the sand that dignifies who exactly is still in the hunt for this thing, even if they did not have a necessarily strong follow-up performance after that cut. So in a way, it's kind of a tale of 2 tournaments. Yes, it's one collective thing that takes place from Thursday to Sunday, and everything you do matters. However, once you make that cut, you can at least count your blessings doing that much and then move forward. And we've seen that happen now. We've seen Colin Morikawa, Tommy Fleetwood, Rory McIlroy, Victor Hovland, all these guys who necessarily weren't playing particularly well yesterday and today, but started off relatively well on day 1. They were able to do just enough to stay in the mix and survive that cut, and now they have a chance to compete for that green jacket. But again, those names that I mentioned there, those key names, the Scotty Schefflers, Cam Smith, Sungjae Im, Shane Lowry, and Charles Schwartzel, Justin Thomas, Dustin Johnson, those are the guys to watch tomorrow because of that jockeying and in some cases, that rallying they were able to do. You can't necessarily count on a guy like Hideki Matsuyama. Right off the bat, he could be in store for a strong Sunday. But after a rough Saturday today, he went 5 over on the day, and now he went from being in the green convincingly yesterday, at the end of Friday, to being 2 over as of right now, heading into Sunday. So again, a tough day for the defending champion Matsuyama, a tough day for Woods, who people were really happy to see make the cut, but not necessarily what you would like to see given what happened with the greens. The weather is a factor. It's cold. It's windy. Those greens today, you saw some of the balls stop just dead on spot because of how dry they are, and that is naturally going to affect putting. If you could put that ball on the green and it doesn't go anywhere, it's going to come up to you to make it's going to be on you to make some of those distance putts. And as we saw with Tiger and several other world-class players today, that did not go in their favor on the green with those 3-putt type of scenarios. So that's going to be what the main thing to follow tomorrow. How these guys, if they can bounce back, will it be through their putting? And if the Dustin Johnsons and Justin Thomases of the world will continue to putt well and climb up that leaderboard to get that much closer to Scotty Scheffler and Cam Smith. I'm going to give you a couple of my plays that I made earlier in the week heading into the tournament just to let you know how they're doing right now. These are all regarding my top 10 finishes. I had Scotty Scheffler, Dustin Johnson, Will Zalatoris, and Cam Smith, all of those are looking good right now. They all made the cut. However, again, the play is for not them to make the cut. The play is for them to crack the top 10. And that's what I want to explain right now, the significance of betting golf and finding opportunities for profit in betting golf. And so much of that lies in the top 10 bets. Listen, at the end of the day, you could bet you could bet someone in the field. In this case, I picked Cam Smith to win at 16-1 odds. But this is the Masters we're talking here, and this is a stacked field. So I'm not just going to hang my hat on that. I wanted to maximize my opportunity to win some bets here. And that's why I always like to jump on top 10 and even in some cases, top 5 finishes for these major tournaments. So again, for the top 10, all they have to do is finish in that top 10 placement on that leaderboard. Scheffler, Dustin Johnson, Zalatoris, and Cam Smith, 3 of those 4 look really strong as of right now. And even earlier today, Zalatoris was in good positioning as well. He slid down the leaderboard a little bit towards the back end of the round. But again, still very much in contention for that top 10 finish. He's currently tied at 14. A strong Sunday can get Mr. Zalatoris, who's had a very strong the last couple of years, back in to the mix. But Scotty Scheffler, he's at the end of the day, if you want to talk about this on a round-by-round basis, he has to be the talk of the town here. Because, sure, he was impressive enough in the first 2 rounds. But what he did on the other side of the cut, putting his foot on the gas and racking up birdie after birdie, and doing what he did on the green, managing those putting scenarios and succeeding in the exact same avenue that so many others faltered in, as I just mentioned, Scotty Scheffler, the current #1 player in the world who has done a whole lot of winning as of late, is looking really, really favorable to win the green jacket as of right now. And the beauty of this is, given that it's done on a round-by-round basis, the live betting of golf, not just the Masters, but of all professional golf, particularly the majors, is one of the most intriguing and at times exciting sports betting, I guess you could say, scenarios on the whole spectrum. I urge you all, if you're a golf bettor, if you bet other sports in-game, you're a big in-game wager, check these constantly flowing and constantly fluctuating lines. Come tomorrow from 2 p.m. all the way through the end of the coverage on CBS and see how they change, because that is where you're going to be able to find the value in the present moment, and you'll also be able to compare it to the value that was on paper a couple of days ago. Because I tell you right now, Cam Smith is not 16-1 anymore. I got him at plus 1,600. That was tremendous value. He's only skyrocketed since then. So now it's opportunities to find other windows of profit, while also hoping that my top 10 players or my top 10 finishers all do just that, finish within the top 10. I do want to read you some of I'll pull it up really quick right here, some of the pairings. They're all set for the tee times come tomorrow. Now, if you don't know, in golf, the leaders pair off last. Makes sense, right? Because, again, if they're in the lead, you have to give the rest of the field, those who made the cut and played today and will play tomorrow, you have to give them a chance to catch up to the leaders. And then if they do, then they have to wait to see if the leaders come up short or keep their foot on the gas and continue on and press forward and continue on with that lead. That's what makes major golf so thrilling. In many ways, you could see guys who start at 10 a.m., have the round of their lives, and then they have to sit there for 2 hours basically twiddling their thumbs, hoping the leaders blow it. That's what's so dramatic. Those are those nail-biting elements that you get in major golf, and you certainly get on Masters Sunday. Once that coverage shifts to the back 9, it's gut check time, and it is one of the most competitively thrilling environments in all the sports. Don't let the aesthetic, don't let the birds singing and the azaleas fool you. Don't let any of that distract you from the fact that this is going to be one of the most competitively intense matchups in the world of sports that we see for the next 4 hours tomorrow. But really quick, before I jump into what's taking place tonight and wrap up my take on the Masters, I just want to give you some of these pairings. Again, Hideki Matsuyama and Victor Hovland kind of slid down a little bit, but they'll be teeing off at 1:10. They're a pairing at 1:10 p.m. come tomorrow. 1:30 p.m., Webb Simpson and Will Zalatoris, again, hoping for a top 10 finish from Will. Dustin Johnson and Cameron Champ, hoping for a top 10 finish from DJ. They tee off 10 minutes after that at 1:40. At 1:50 is Rory McIlroy and Colin Morikawa. Rory McIlroy was pretty solid on day one, has kind of dropped a little bit the past 2 days, but has done enough to make the cut. Will he be in the mix? Talk about a beautiful conversation there for CBS. Obviously, it'd be better if Tiger, but if you could have Rory McIlroy in the mix on a back nine situation on Sunday, not only is that ratings galore for the network, that is monumental for the sport of golf, and it would be monumental for Rory McIlroy, given that this tournament is the one that continues to elude him. Rory could become a Grand Slam champion, and his positioning isn't necessarily great right now, but he does have a fighting chance, and he'll have to do a lot of damage control and a lot of legwork tomorrow. We'll see if Rory could continue that campaign. Again, that green jacket has eluded him for a long time. But he tees off with Colin Morikawa, one of the premier young players in the game right now. And then after them, Tommy Fleetwood and Jason Kokrak at 2 p.m. At 2:10 p.m., Corey Connors and Danny Willett, who are both in the top 10 as of right now. Connors at 6. Willett is tied for 8, former champion in 2016, as I mentioned. And at 2:20 p.m., Charles Schwartzel, the 2011 champion, along with Justin Thomas, who had a fabulous round today, was phenomenal with his putter. And then Shinjae Im, who rallied, did a lot of great putting late. And Shane Lowry, who bogeyed a couple of times to drop him back down, but again, still positioned very strongly on that leaderboard, given those insurance birdies that we saw on Thursday and Friday. And that all leads up to 2:40 when it's prime Jim Nantz and Nick Faldo hour, and we'll find Scotty Scheffler and Cameron Smith teeing off to wrap up everything, or at least kickstart the final stretch before the wrap-up as we truck forward to crown a new Masters champion. Last year, the year before, and the year before that, going back decades, it always seems to deliver, and I think it's a strong favorite on the money line that it's going to deliver once again. Speaking of money lines, we have a couple of strong favorites on the money line tonight in UFC 273, going down live from Jacksonville, Florida. Last time UFC was in this venue, we had no fans at all. Now it's going to be a packed house. We know how those Florida crowds get for big-time MMA cards, and this is certainly a big-time MMA card. Actually hasn't been promoted as heavily as some of the bigger UFC pay-per-view events we have seen in the past few months, going into the back end of 2021 and the first few months of this year. But what it may lack in flash, it certainly makes up for in substance. A featherweight title bout going down to as the main event between Alexander Volkanovski and the Korean Zombie Shan Zung Shung. I say that name once every like 3 years because even on commentary on the broadcast, you'll hear Zombie a lot. All the sports writers refer to him as Zombie. It's just this point it easier to call him the Korean Zombie. Now, some of you may be wondering why he's called that. Much of that has to do with the durability of his chin, the relentless pressure moving forward, and the fact that this guy is so hard to put away. However, he is facing the best 145-pound fighter in the world today, in Alexander Volkanovski, the Australian who has made really a strong claim to be the best 145-pound fighter of all time. At this point, it's a debate between him and Max Holloway, and everyone is waiting for their trilogy fight. But until we get to that point, all Volkanovski can do is beat who's in front of him, and he did that most recently against Brian Ortega back last fall. A tremendous fight. It was fight of the night. It was one of the more pulse-pounding fights of the year between two 145-pound warriors. But Volkanovski, for the most part, despite a few interesting sequences against Ortega, controlled that fight. And I expect him to do the same. Again, the odds reflect how one-sided this matchup is, especially at this point in their careers. Volkanovski at the chalk, 750. Coming back is the Zombie at plus 525. The age difference isn't too much. 33 years old for Volkanovski, the champion, and for the contender, 35 years old. Again, Volkanovski, just such a well-rounded fighter. Incorporates wrestling and forward pressure and leg kicks. Can do a lot from the ground. Really just well-rounded based off of not only his skill set, but because of how athletic he is. He has those quick-twitch muscle fibers. He really knows how to explode into his exchanges, whether that be in striking or level changes. He's very effective from the clinch. And again, he always keeps his foot on the gas. Very interesting given the matchup. His opponent, the contender in the Korean Zombie, does the same thing. So the question is, I believe, who hurts who first? Can Zombie do enough in his striking to effectively hurt Volkanovski? Because I don't think there's anything in his grappling arsenal that will be able to effectively work against the champion. I think if it stays on the feet, at least when staying on the feet, it gives, no pun intended, but it gives the Zombie a fighting chance. The more and more this ventures into grappling type scenarios on the cage, in the clinch, and on the ground, it plays more into Volkanovski's favor. Volkanovski's only lost one fight. He's 23-1, and again, sure and ahead, other than Max Holloway, the best 145-pound fighter in the world today. The Zombie at 17-6 got this. His most recent fight was last June against Dan Ige in a very, very impressive knockout win. That's how he got this fight. Volkanovski outside of Holloway is pretty much torn through the division, so they're kind of just throwing him anyone who's left at this point other than Holloway. And even though that's no cakewalk in the Korean Zombie, the odds here I don't think are out of disrespect. I think they more are out of respect, and it's a reflection of how dominant Alexander Volkanovski is as a champion and how much his style of fighting benefits him against pretty much anybody outside of Max Holloway. And based off the record, that even includes Max Holloway. So the best featherweight fighter in the world today, I believe, defends his belt. I do not like the betting value there. However, I do like the round prop. It's set at 4.5 rounds in a 5-round championship fight. That's essentially the whole it's the whole distance. Normally, these round props are at 2.5 or 3.5, which makes it a lot tougher to call. This, I'm basically saying, will end some point within the final, with 2 minutes and 30 seconds to spare. I'll spare you all the math. That's what it is. This needs to end before 2 minutes and 30 seconds to spare in that 5th round for my bet to cash, and I believe it does. Plus 130 attached to the under on 4.5 rounds. I'm going under. I believe Volkanovski, and the beauty is this, it doesn't have to rely on a specific outcome. It doesn't matter if he wins by knockout, submission, a technical knockout, doctor stoppage. It doesn't matter. As long as that fight ends before there is 2.5 minutes left in that 5th round, I and anyone else playing that will walk away with money. So at minus 750, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. There's simply no value associated with Volkanovski. But there's a whole lot of value associated with the under prop. So give me the under at plus 130 on 4.5 rounds. The beauty is, though, we don't stop there, and we still have plenty more to talk here before we wrap things up. But I want to keep it on the UFC 273 card, the co-main event, Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling, an undisputed bantamweight championship fight. Aljamain Sterling, the champion. Petr Yan, the interim champion, which he won in his recent fight against Corey Sandhagen this past fall, a premier 135-pound fighter in his own right. Now, this is interesting because this serves as a rematch, and the only reason Aljamain has the belt right now is because in the first meeting between these two fighters, Aljamain was subject to an illegal knee. Because of that illegal knee, as he was down, Yan lost the fight, and as a result, lost his recently won bantamweight crown. That fight was just about a year ago, and Aljamain has not fought since. He's battled some health. He's had some health concerns. He's battled some injuries, and because of that, he's been inactive. Yan, we've seen recently in his interim championship bout. And here we go, the rematch. The odds, again, very much, I guess you could say, very much reflective of the night as a whole. Heavy chalk on the favorites. A lot of value in terms of the buyback for the underdogs, but given the matchup and given the fact that styles make fights, I don't know what Aljamain can do to fend off Yan here. You look at the boxing, the pressure, the sheer intensity and the volume in which Yan throws his punches and his strikes and comes forward. He's really aggressive with his wrestling and mixing his wrestling with his striking. Dr. Buff Bagwell says on Twitter, the Korean Zombie is a dope nickname, and yes, sir, it is. He's a dope fighter. He will entertain you. That's why he got this fight. The Korean Zombie at 17-6 at this point in his career doesn't have as much left in the tank as some of the other competitors and contenders in the featherweight division. He's getting this fight simply because of the fact he is going to entertain the people who order this fight or who are buying a ticket to show up live. So even though he's pitted against the best fighter in the world, rest assured Twitter and anyone else watching and voicing their opinion on tonight will probably have something to say about the Korean Zombie because he always gives you something to say. And again, please continue to tweet us, jump in on the comment section. We'd love to hear your picks. We'd love to hear your picks for Augusta. We'd love to hear your picks regarding tonight's UFC 273 card. If you have any NBA or NFL future picks, we'd love to hear those as well. Please let us know if you cashed out big in the tournament. Let us know with that as well. We'd love to hear your insights, your stories, your anecdotes. We're all about interaction here at Go Live Vegas. But in terms of the matchup itself, again, Aljamain, a world-class grappler, great at fighting off his back in jiu-jitsu type of scrambles and scenarios, can really lock something in out of nowhere and knows how to put people away with different chokes and locks. But again, I don't think Yan will fall into that trap. I think he incorporates the boxing and the wrestling to his advantage, keeps Aljamain on his back foot the whole time. And the question is, will Aljamain, if he cannot choke out or tap out Yan from his back using his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt skills, what is he going to be able to do to hurt Petr? Given the way Petr presses forward, strikes, and grapples, I just don't know how long Aljamain, despite all his grappling prowess, respect to him, I just don't know how long he can fend him off, and I don't know if he'll be able to hurt Yan in any type of scenario. However, I do not think, on the contrary to what many may tell you, I do not think this is a stoppage. I think this does actually go to the scorecards. And while I do think it may become a one-sided affair as the bout goes on, I do think Aljamain holds him off enough to avoid a stoppage. And I think Jan is victorious, but I think he's victorious via a unanimous decision victory. So I'm picking Jan in the outcome prop at plus 205 via unanimous decision. So see what I'm doing here? I'm avoiding picking the favorite. I'm not picking Volkanovski at minus 705. I'm not picking Jan minus 750, and I'm not picking Jan at minus 450. I'm more so picking how they're going to win. I believe Volkanovski will do it within the distance. I believe Jan will do it outside of the distance on the judges' scorecard. I think the wrestling and the boxing will be too much for Aljo to handle, and I think Petr Yan unifies those two bantamweight belts in what is one of the most stacked divisions in all of combat sports and the UFC. And perhaps the most stacked division in the UFC is that welterweight division. Rich will join me here in a moment to wrap things up, but I want to wrap up this segment by giving my final play of the night for this UFC 273 card going live on pay-per-view in about 12 minutes from Jacksonville. And that is the welterweight bout. The welterweight division is completely stacked, so it was only a matter of time till these two crossroads. And that is Khamzat Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns. This fight itself is, looking at lost one of my notes here, but it's all good. Oh, no, I got it right here. I just want to give you the exact odd because there has been some fluctuation, but I want to be direct in this because of how one-sided it is. Khamzat Chimaev, minus 550. Gilbert Burns, plus 425. Again, what's the current theme of US 273? Lopsided splits here. Heavy chalk on the favorites and a lot of value on the bounce back for the dogs. The problem is the dogs, as I've alluded to in these first two bouts, don't really seem to offer a whole lot in the matchup and the stylistic aspects that makes me think they could walk away with a victory. But again, I can't just walk up to the counter and expect to profit off a minus 750 or minus 550 type of odds. So what am I addressing for the Chimaev-Gilbert Burns fight? I think this fight also goes the distance, on the contrary to what many people will tell you. Much like the last fight where a lot of people think Jan and Aljo won't make it, I think that they will, and I think this fight will as well. Give me Chimaev via UD, plus 525. That is how certain the house is on Chimaev putting away Gilbert Burns. Not just a formidable fighter, but one of the best 170-pound fighters in the world, winner of 7 of his last 8, with his only loss coming to the champion, Kamaru Usman, a fight that he was very, very successful early on before Usman tagged him late in the fight and put him away via stoppage. So Gilbert Burns, one of the premier welterweights in the world, mixes wrestling and jiu-jitsu. A lot of times, much I like how I mentioned with Aljamain Sterling, jiu-jitsu guys are a little more defensive. They let you come to them and they trick you and bait you and trap you in those submission scenarios by often fighting off their back. Gilbert Burns, however, he takes the fight to you by wrestling. He'll take you down, he'll clinch you, he'll double leg you, and he'll work that pressure and then go to his jiu-jitsu skills and look to lock things up for him with a submission. That's very much his game, and it's extremely effective. We've seen it effective against, at one point, high-end welterweights such as Tyron Woodley. We saw it effective against Stephen Thompson. It has been effective against everybody but the best in the world, the champion Kamaru Usman, and I think it will be a lot more effective than people are giving him credit for. As opposed to Zombie and Volkanovski, where I think the gap, and even Jan and Aljamain Sterling, where I think the gap in the favorite and the dog is more of a sign of respect for the champion. This, I think, Vegas is overlooking Burns a little bit too much. I think the proper chalk is Chimaev. I think he should be the favorite. He's one of the best prospects in the sport. They're pushing him to the moon and back, and rightfully so. But here's a fighter who's been sidelined over a year with COVID. He doesn't have the experience or the vast wealth of I guess you could say, he doesn't have the level of competitor that Burns has. He hasn't faced a level of competition like Burns has, and I think that will show. I believe Chimaev wins via UD because I believe Gilbert Burns will be able to do a lot with his wrestling and grappling to fend off Chimaev. He is smaller for a welterweight. That's always been a question mark surrounding Gilbert Burns. Meanwhile, Chimaev has a distinct reach advantage, a 4-inch reach advantage, and about a 3-inch height advantage. Those all will come into play, and those will all come into the mix, and why I think Chimaev walks away with his hand raised. But I believe the fight goes the distance, plus 240, and I believe that fight is won via UD by Chimaev at plus 525. So there you have it. Again, I'm not touching the price as it is, the 550 versus the 425. But give me Chimaev using the wrestling, doing just enough to get his hand raised with the decision victory. But I think this fight is a hell of a lot closer than people are letting on. Do not forget how formidable Gilbert Burns is in these type of wrestling type of bouts. And don't forget, he's battle tested and has won 7 of his last 8. Don't let that size fool you. The skill will shine through, the tenacity and the game and the moxie will shine through, even though I believe Chimaev will do enough and continue his rapid rise to the top. So there you go. We'll go to a break really quick. I'll give you my picks, though, again, for the Masters. Hopefully next week at this time I'll have some good news. Cam Smith to win at 16-1. I made that before the tournament, so those odds are no longer available. But if you did get them before the tournament started, there's some value there. I like Cam as well as Scotty, who are at 1 and 2 on the leaderboard right now, to place in the top 10 on a finish, as well as Dustin Johnson, Will Zalatoris. And for tonight, UFC 273 picks. Give me the under and the 145 title bout between Volkanovski and Korean Zombie. I like that at plus 130. I like Volkanovski to retain. And then I like Jan to unify the bantamweight crown via a unanimous decision victory over Aljamain Sterling to go along with the 2 picks I just gave. Chimaev via UD at plus 525 and the fight going the distance at plus 240. Had some success a month ago with Colby Covington and Masvidal, and I hope you guys were happy as you cashed those tickets if you took my word for it. Maybe we could be Liz Lucky this time around. We're going to wrap things up here on Go Live Vegas. Richard will get back on the set, and we're going to talk some NBA and NFL futures and how to maximize your profit and cut your risks. That's next here on Full Tilt.
Hi, my name is Richard Delatorre. I'm the author of It's in the Book, Winning Ways. It's on Blackjack, Craps, and Roulette, and you can get it on Amazon, Google Play. You can get it on Barnes & Noble, and it teaches you the ratios and percentages of the casino, because the casino is really in charge. I put the percentages and ratios in your favor. You spend a little bit more money, but you have a better chance of winning. Doesn't mean you're going to win. No book should ever say you guarantee you're going to win. But what I did do is I cut down the ratios and percentages so you fully understand them on these 3 games. So you can go ahead and get that book. I was one of the top selling books on Amazon 2018. I was number 7. I was with Doyle Brunson, Negreanu, The Magician, John Patrick, so I was pretty good for my first book. So you can go ahead and get that book and pretty much read it to where you pretty much got it memorized, and you should be walking the casino as pretty much as an expert on these 3 games. The platform here is Go Live Vegas Studios, and my show is called Full Tilt Vegas, 6 p.m. Saturday night. I do have guests. Brett Lawson is a sports analyst. He comes on after me. Sometimes we double up. He does it on all the sports, and you can go ahead and see that. And I'll see you next Saturday or every Saturday at 6 p.m. on Full Tilt Vegas. Thank you very much. Back here, Go Live Vegas Studios. This is Full Tilt Vegas. Yeah, you saw my commercial there. I didn't mention in the beginning, but you get my book. I suggest you get it on your phone. The guy was named Ron Harris. That was his name. Ron Harris, he worked for the Nevada Gaming Control Board. He was the one that got caught. So I'm going to give Brett a lot of this time because he's got to get to these NBA picks. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is actually fitting because I remember the last time I joined you, Richard, in our final segment here on Full Tilt, we were touching on NBA futures, and I remember I jumped on, and these weren't to win the finals. These were simply to win the conference. So the Western and Eastern Conference, I jumped on, and this was, I want to say, late January, early February, right before the Super Bowl. Actually may have been even right after, but either way, this is from February. Phoenix Suns to win the Western Conference at plus 170, and I like the 76ers to win the Eastern Conference at plus 350. The reason why I am reiterating that now is because if you've been watching the NBA in the past few weeks, hasn't looked particularly great for the 76ers in the East. Meanwhile, the Milwaukee Bucks and even the Brooklyn Nets are kind of starting to come into their own, and you have a strong feeling that once things really get sorted out with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, the Nets are going to be that much more formidable. Meanwhile, the Bucks are looking like exactly who the Bucks are, the defending champions. So now that road to that road for Philadelphia, which already had a lot of resistance anyway because it's the East, seems to have that much more resistance because Philadelphia isn't quite clicking in terms of the combination of James Harden and Joel Embiid, like I think a lot of Philadelphia fans would have hoped. Now, granted, Philadelphia fans are tend to be a little bit emotionally charged. If you're a Philadelphia fan tuning in, my apologies, but you know I'm right. But then again, as sports fans, we all are. But if you're betting sports, you want to try to cut that emotion out of it. So what I'm telling you right now is to not completely fade the 76ers. I'm not telling you to jump ship. In fact, if anything, I'm telling you to double down. Because here's the thing, Richard, they're currently at plus 350 to win the Eastern Conference. You want to know what they're at now? They're at plus 450. So if you are equally as confident as that in the fact that the 76ers, given who they have on their roster, will be able to salvage what has happened, it hasn't been disastrous. It's just been a little underwhelming. So if they get hot here, we're really, really close to the playoffs. So if they get hot in the playoffs and are able to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals and win, again, we don't have to have them winning the big dance. We just have to have them getting there. You will now profit more now than you would have just a couple of weeks ago when they were at plus 350. And that's kind of the moral of the story as we wrap things up here on this episode of Full Tilt that I just want to allude to. Now is the time where you must look at your future bets that you made a couple of months ago and look at them again now to see if you could get greater value. You look at Phoenix right now. They were at plus 350. They were at plus 170 to win the Western Conference a few weeks ago. Right now they're at plus 110. And that's because Phoenix is looking like the best team in the NBA. So now that we're getting a better idea of who's going to be in the mix, it's obviously very top heavy as the NBA tends to be. And I've mentioned on this network several times, I've debated on other shows that maybe there are too many teams in the mix. That should be a topic of further conversation to kind of cut that down. Sports are 1,000 times better when you're drunk. Gwenny, she gets it. You tell him, Gwenny. Especially when you're betting. Especially when you're betting. But that's a crucial thing. That's a crucial thing to remember here. Gauge what you were feeling opinion-wise against these teams. Again, it's top-heavy, and there's a lot of teams in the mix. But if you follow the game close enough, Richard, if you watch it closely on a regular basis, especially now when the NBA is really, really, really heating up, you're going to know who those teams are in the mix on that, that upper echelon. Again, Philadelphia to win the finals at plus 12 at 12-1, Miami at 11-1, Boston at plus 1,000. Those are great prices, but do you really think they have what it takes to win the whole thing? Again, I'm talking the whole picture, where you look at Phoenix, Milwaukee, plus 265, plus 550, Brooklyn at plus 700, Golden State at 10-1. A little bit more likely given their personnel and given how they've looked all season long and recently as we head into the playoffs.
That's why I like hedge betting. That's
Absolutely.
10-1 right there.
Absolutely. And now you're in a position to where if you did feel strongly about Philadelphia a while ago, a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, and you bet them at 350 to win the East, now you may be feeling more stronger about Milwaukee at plus 250 or even Brooklyn at 320. So only one can make it, but that's what hedging is.
Right.
And now since there's different value, you could attach basically just a different wad of cash, or anything out of your mobile app if you're doing it that way instead, if you're not as old school. Now the actual amount of betting handle you're putting forth can be altered depending on that value, because in some cases you may not need to bet as much. And I'm mentioning this now because in a few weeks, as we get into the weeds of the NBA postseason, we will address these futures again, because all these teams are going to make it. So it's not like we have to worry about them getting eliminated, facing risking elimination and watching the rest of it on their couch. They're going to be active, they're going to be playing, and we'll be able to track the fluctuation in their future prices, as we will for the NFL as well, in the wake of free agency and getting closer to the draft. Those prices will change once again, as they will in the NBA and in the Stanley Cup, and we will continue to track all of them to show for opportunities in hedging and maximum profit.
Well, there you have it. You got Brett's picks.
That went by fast.
Real fast.
Yeah, I feel like we still have another hour. It's but it's been a while, you forget sometimes. Last time I was here, you were clean shaven, so.
Yeah, we'll be back next Saturday on Full Tilt Vegas. Brett will probably be here, right, Brett?
Yeah, no, I'm not. We got some schedule time cleared up. It's time to lock in, solidify, and really tackle some of the best sports bets of this time of year. I love the laugh track because that may be a joke right there. Well, I'll have to prove them wrong. So we'll see. Again, this is one of the best time of years to bet sports in the moment and towards the future. So we'll continue to jump on that and address that in the following weeks.
We'll see you next Saturday at Full Tilt Vegas, Go Live Vegas Studios. Thank you very much.